Hey, boys and girls, weather report. If you don't know what the fuck day it is, go check it yourself. May 7th. Anyway.
Found it.
World. Hello, Jason.
Found it.
I'm glad you did, but we're live and nobody knows what the fuck you're talking about midnight. So
I know.
You want to? Did you put it in private chat, the link or whatever, or the
private chat?
Yes, I did.
What the hell? Oh, so Praise had a channel, had a stream last night, and SFT was on there, and they were talking. I must have irritated him. I came in and I was talking to Orge about sedimentation and how yaks are so completely clueless. When you start reading about sedimentation, the whole young Earth thing just falls to pieces, and that's all you need to know. So it's kind of like
that's it. Gibbon has done some good geologic takedowns of the young Earth creationists.
It just doesn't make any sense that a flood could have sorted everything into layers the way they think, and particularly when you look at ions. I mean, it's not going to sort fucking ions into layers. It's just so ridiculous. But anyway, so and then SFT said, "Come on in, Speed, and give us your best evidence for evolution." And like, as soon as they say that, you realize that they don't have any idea what they're talking about at all. I mean, does anybody else get this? How asking for your best evidence for evolution, but you can turn it around. You can ask them, what is your best evidence for the Christian God, right? And what are they going to tell you? How do you think how do they respond to that?
The Bible.
What is your yeah, and
that's what you get, the Bible.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, the way I respond to the best evidence for evolution is all of the textbooks that have ever been written on biology, chemistry, physics, and geology, and but they won't accept that answer, right? I mean, if that is the best evidence for evolution, so what? But how is that different? They only have one book, and we have thousands. I don't know. Is that a problem for us?
Plus papers, plus labs and labs and labs full of
and all the papers,
plus warehouses full of dinosaur fossil bones, as well as mammoth and whale and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and apparently Standing was listening yesterday when I said I'm not going to go on their streams until they start coming on our streams, except that he only heard the part where I said I'm too tired that late at night, and he started trying to basically shit all over me based on what I said, and didn't really have too many good points at all. But this joker doesn't know anything about the subject that he's blathering about all the time. And I don't know, hardly worth listening to. But then the interesting thing that happened is Darth came onto this stream and started Darth has been, he's been hooking up with these guys on a regular basis. And I think it's kind of cool because Darth has entered our arena, right? The creationist arena. And so we have sort of a weird satanic marriage going on here, which I think is interesting. But what I really liked about it is Argatha, who is sometimes a really logical fella and intelligent and rational, and also sometimes not biased, started asking Darth questions. And that was and Darth actually answered questions. Have you ever heard Darth answer questions before?
Not really. The only time was, I guess, when there was that discussion between Peter and Darth on this channel about the Bible. interpretations of like Matthew
Right.
and stuff like that.
Yep. And that was like, a rare event. But so anyway, but it was interesting. And Darth actually admitted to not being well read on universals. And that was interesting because his whole argument is based on the supreme universal, right, of God, that sort of thing, that God is a universal. But anyway, so there was some interesting stuff here that came up, and I just thought we'd chat about it a little bit. And my inclination was to put up a little image of Darth Dawkins as a dipshit, because he is. He's such a dipshit.
Yeah, the only reason why he actually, answered questions is because, Algotha is a Christian, and that's truly the only reason. He would have never done that with an atheist, of course.
Yeah.
So that's the reason right there.
Yep.
Can I say one thing on that topic? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The only thing I was going to say is, I don't think Darth is a dipshit. I think that to underestimate don't underestimate Darth. Like if you do it at your own peril, because his positions may have some aspect of incoherency, and he gets, he may have like psychological issues by his, how he approaches people, but he can be a ruthless and adept debater. And so I don't want to like diminish that, because going into a discussion with him, you have to be ready. You can't just think he's a dumbass and you're
in other words, don't underestimate your opponent.
Yeah. But you have to ask Jason, what is my definition of a dipshit? And the things that you said about Darth, that's my definition of a dipshit.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Psychological problems, intimidating, a jerk, a bully.
Yeah.
But dipshit.
I would agree what you said, Jason, the same thing, but he's still a dipshit.
Well, look who has joined us is Erica.
What up?
Hey.
What video were you saying?
Oh, I caught the second half of Professor Dave's response to James' tour, and the buzz around the rest of the guys in me has essentially been, we always give these professional creationists the benefit of the doubt. They've got these degrees, they do decent conventional work when they do it. But the second that they start getting into the realm of evolution and abiogenesis, you realize they're just like all the others. They don't know what it is that they're talking about. And they can dress it up in nice language, as Tor does with his synthetic chemistry background. And, God knows he's probably an excellent synthetic chemist. But there's a reason why he's not doing origin of life research. There's a reason why most synthetic chemists don't. And I think, Tor, Professor Dave outlined very succinctly at the end what it is that the agenda of not the agenda rather, but the tactics of these IV proponents really are. And the part that he kind of summarized is something that I think everyone, at least in this chat, is very familiar with, which is hand wave the entire field by saying that, the scientists know this is a failing field and everything's collapsing under the weight of itself, and then paint what is published as a conspiracy. Which is precisely why when you get people like LPP or Standing for Truth, who on the rare occasion that they actually delve into the literature in its full scope, they tend to skip around or not have read it before or not understand the actual breadth of what the article is trying to say. And I know this firsthand because I took on the, if I do say so myself, monumentous task of trying to read through all of LPP's sources and I took meticulous notes on them, especially towards the beginning. I kind of faded a little towards the end because I realized that they all were essentially getting the same treatment by him. But none of the articles ever say what they want them to say. It's always, here's a problem that this paper is trying to address, and that's what they highlight, and then they leave the paper and skip the part where they say, here's the solution.
Right.
Anyways, I just wanted to come on because I thought Dave did a really excellent job. I actually left a comment because I was like, we give him way too much credit, because legitimate science, again, to repeat as I can, try to do as much as possible these days, doesn't know that these guys are still around. ID and young Earth creationism are irrelevant in the broader scale of things.
Yeah.
No one knows that they're still around. So
Exactly.
Yeah,
nice
they love
to meet you. By the way, I've never met Jason before. So hello, I'm Erica.
Oh, yeah. Nice meeting you, Eric. I've seen a lot of your stuff online. So
awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
He's YouTube royalty.
Very
no.
impressive.
Me and my 6K channel is not YouTube royalty, but
Getting
I
there.
appreciate the sentiment.
Yeah, getting there. I think the reason that they love us so much is because we're the only ones that do pay attention to them.
Well,
I mean, yeah,
that's
they're very lonely.
Well, that's exactly it, Speed, because, and Dave, I thought highlighted this very well, and it's something that I could probably do a better job of myself. Every time you get a professional creationist, someone who's got the letters behind their name to back themselves up, isn't it funny that they leave all their creationist talks to the pulpit? It never enters their conventional work ever, because they can't bump it up to conventional peer review. Tor will come out with the molecular machines and his 700 papers and his numerous patents and does fine work, because that's the area he was conventionally trained in. The second that he starts talking about abiogenesis, as Dave and his assorted guests pointed out, he doesn't know what he's talking about, which is fine. This is the reason why most PhDs don't speak outside of their field with confidence. They tend to say, look, this is an area outside of my expertise, but here's what I know about it. That's not what Tor did in his series. He came up and puffed himself up as if this was his world as a synthetic chemist. And that should have been a warning sign to anyone who understands what science is truly like, what the field and the community of academia really is, because no one speaks outside of their realm of expertise with that much confidence, unless they're a snake oil salesman.
Yep. Yeah, and he hasn't written any papers on abiogenesis.
How curious is that? How curious.
Yeah, that is
that
curious.
He's got all this excellent work that truly is his graphene stuff, I believe it is, has made quite a splash in synthetic chemistry. That's great. That's awesome. I know the same is true. Like Georgia Purdom did some conventional work when she was in her program on, I think it was the immune system, if memory serves, or blood clotting or something along those lines. And it was fine. It's just, these guys have this, from my perspective, incredible ability to turn off the rational side of their mind when they start encountering things that kind of challenge the preconceived notion. And I'm reading this book right now called The War on Science, which is pretty good. I'm liking what I'm reading about it so far. But in the section that's discussing kind of religion, the ideological war on science, they discuss how everyone is kind of subject to, they're vulnerable to fall prey to these ideas of, when they encounter something that challenges their preconceived notions, they tend to treat it with more scrutiny, and they tend to easily wash over the bits that are robust when compared to being met with a study that confirms their preconceived notions.
Have you seen this one?
Oh no, I haven't seen that one yet.
By Pigliucci?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just got it, so I haven't looked.
By the way,
Pigliucci,
Erica, I wanted to chime in just a little bit, because you're someone is viciously attacking you in the side chat. Hi, Otangelo. But he does have a point.
What's his point?
While creation science may not be anything that modern science is interested in or even acknowledging, young Earth creationism itself is on the rise, not only in the U.S. but in Europe as well.
But not in academia. Not in academia.
No.
Not in academia.
But
no, guys. The thing is, creationism is on the rise in the sense that more people who are already religious are taking to creationism, but overall numbers, like the last poll I saw was from 2019, a Gallup poll, because interestingly enough, how Otangelo likes to cherry pick which sources he wants to use, because the most recent poll had young Earth creationism at 18%, Otangelo. You guys are dropping 18? Like flies in the grand scheme of things.
That's still ridiculous.
More people are leaving. Yeah, more people are leaving religion in general. which leaves the ones who stick around typically the more fundamentalist ones, the ones that tend to like creationism. So in the religious world, creationism is rising. Overall numbers, they are plummeting.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant to say. So Christianity as a whole is on a decline, and the people who are sticking around are becoming more and more fundamental for some reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, that's fine if Otangelo, and, LPP and all those guys, they live in this world that one could only maintain if they'd never actually had a brush within actual academia, that, the veil is being lifted from the eyes of the scientists, and look at how they're finally beginning to see the truth of intelligent design. And it's and I imagine Jason has the same feeling as I do. I'm just hopefully finishing my master's degree here, depending on what I get on my thesis. But I'm starting my PhD in the fall, and I imagine that it will continue there. But is your experience that academia just doesn't even acknowledge intelligent design at this point? I've never seen or encountered, and I deal with ecologists, I deal with biochemists, I deal with folks who focus more on classical phylogeny, primatologists in particular I deal with a lot too, but none of them, they find it very funny when they find out what I do as a hobby. When they find out that I have this YouTube channel that deals with creationism a lot, they're like, oh, they're still milling about, are they?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, they are. And it's fun to deal with them, and it's fun to talk about, but no one who has, no one really takes them seriously in academia. And the reason is because when the ones who do propose ID open their mouths, like James Tour, and discuss, what they mean when they say ID, they get ridiculed.
Exactly. Yeah.
So forgive me, guys. Forgive me. Sorry, I let him in.
That's okay. Otangelo, I'm happy to hear him kind of attempt to defend this.
I actually have no problem with Otangelo.
I don't either.
He's respectful in his discussions. I don't necessarily agree with him, but I'm glad.
He's brave enough to come in here all the time. He comes in here all the time, and I can respect him.
I get goosebumps when I hear that name.
Okay, Peter. Knock it off. Okay.
I want to say one thing, just to reiterate or just to support what Eric was saying, that nobody in academia takes any of those topics seriously. Anybody that's working in that intelligent design area is an extremely small minority. And if I work with a lot of molecular biologists, and I'm in a modeling core area, none of those people even give that any thought whatsoever. They're much more focused on their own existing research, and they don't even devote a second of their time to thinking about that.
But there.
What do you think of that, Otangelo?
Oh, okay, but that's sort of a call out for us to keep doing what we're doing, because if academia is not paying attention to it, and we still have 18%, and we have a lot of kids that are coming up. I think in this stream last night, I caught them at one point talking about how I think they were trying to defend their Christian children against Mormonism, but they're making the point that they have to prepare their children for the talking points, right, that come up, and they're preparing their children. So our reaching out on YouTube, which is something that children watch, helps. So we need to counter them.
I totally agree, but only the last piece I will say on this is that in the last, I don't know how many years, there has been a tremendous increase of people latching on to these really wacky ideas like the flat earth theory. If you went back 15, 20 years and you mentioned flat earth, it would be much more dismissed. But given the internet and social media and, a lot of the allowance of people to kind of congregate in their own little identity groups, so they never hear anything other than that. It perpetuates these topics, and so I would agree with you that that's an issue that we want to combat. But the views of those fringe areas in academic circles hasn't really changed. They don't even give them, like, nobody talks about flat earth. Nobody talks about, I mean, intelligent design, probably a little bit, it's not as crazy as flat earth. There are a small, minute number of people trying to publish in those areas, but they are like so low in terms of the evolutionary biology perspective.
Well, Jason, I think that flat earth is much more reasonable than believing that we have a common ancestor with apes.
Well,
Tangelo, you are an ape, and to date you have never been able to present to me a single reason why you're not. We've had this conversation multiple times before. I say, give me a reason you're not, and you can't provide a reason. You are an ape. That's just what you are physically. You can disagree spiritually. You could propose that our definition of species is incorrect, or that our ability to define organisms and group them by genetics is incorrect. But what you are physically constitutes a hominid. Not only are you a hominid, you're a hominoid. And not only are you a hominoid, you are an anthropoid primate. You're also a haplorhine. You're a primate in general. That's the order that you belong to. You're a mammal. You're a vertebrate. You're a eukaryote. These are things that you just are. So if you haven't with that, you have to provide actual rebuttals to it instead of just doing what you've done with me in the past, which is simply that you aren't.
Jason, something else.
Hold on, Angela. I have to ask you this. I wanted to ask you this. Are you a mammal?
Yeah.
Okay, but you're not an ape?
Well, I think that we are a special creation made by God as outlined in Genesis.
But, no, you didn't answer my question. Okay, you said yes to being a mammal, but you say what to being an ape? What is your answer, yes or no? Are you an ape?
No.
Okay, well, don't you realize how ridiculous that is?
Yeah, precisely.
Well,
this is not acceptable. You can't come on here and say that the reason you're not an ape is because of what's outlined in Genesis if you accept you're a mammal, because the same logic applies. You have to present a reason as to why you aren't an ape but are a mammal, or else you're not actually using science, and it is thus a baseless assertion.
Well, I do have a question. For Otangelo. Okay, if you're a mammal, isn't it possible that you're also an ape or hominid, and that in God, like you get the question, you're a mammal, right? So why aren't you also an ape that God used to create? God fucking damn it! I can't talk.
Can I steal man your position?
Thank you.
So Otangelo, if all of us have the exact same designer, could the designer have used an ape as a basis to design us?
Just a minute, Peter. I am looking here. Saying parts of
you're breaking up a little.
Mammals. Well,
all I want from you, Angelo, is for you to be consistent. If you're going to say that you're a mammal, you are an ape, because those are the same criteria applies down that line. If you have binocular vision, if you have a 2123 dental formula, if you have a mobile shoulder joint, if you have a large brain case size relative to your body size, if you share 98.8% of your DNA with other members of genus Pan, for instance, then you simply are an ape. Like, there's just no getting around that. You and I get this a lot from creation. Even Standing for Truth accepts this. Even he knows he's an ape. He said that publicly on his own channel. So why can't you come to terms with the fact that the body that you inhabit is just an ape? That's what it is.
Okay, I will quote here from Answers in Genesis. Are we mammals? If humans are not really animals, except in the purest biological sense, then why do we classify humans as mammals? The answer is again one of context. The word animal is routinely used in non-biological ways in ordinary conversation, and in those contexts, humans are distinctly different from animals. However, the word mammal automatically carries scientific implications. Mammals are members of the Mammalia class. What characteristics do mammals share? The list has been refined since Linnaeus gave us his in the 18th century. Mammals are warm-blooded and breathe air. They have mammary glands with which females can feed their young. Mammals, including whales, possess some sort of hair or fur at some time in their lives, however sparse it might be. In addition, mammalian brains include a neocortex in which many higher order brains.
Okay, Otangelo, I've muted
What's the
you. You've
point?
been reading to us for a minute.
Yeah,
the
don't do
So
that.
may I please field this? May I please have a for 5 minutes? Can I have a one-on-one conversation with Otangelo here?
Yes, you may.
Is that okay with everyone? Okay, Otangelo, I would like to do
I
an
think it is
exercise.
remarkable that you, Erica, were talking for several minutes in a row. Nobody interrupted you, and everyone.
Okay,
Listen
Otangelo,
to me, Otangelo.
let me
You will not read to us for over a minute and then object because we muted you. Do not read to people. They don't
read
like
to
that.
people.
Did he
You
leave?
can put your link up there and read a couple of quotes, but not for a whole minute or more. You would have gone more than a minute if we had not done
2
this.
minutes. Okay,
But
Otangelo, just try to summarize what you're reading instead of reading it to us. Okay? Did he bounce?
I think so.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, Erica.
because he doesn't want to have a one-on-one conversation with me.
Yeah.
He's never been able to defend this, not once, which is precisely why even standing for truth will own this. And the reason Answers in Genesis is incorrect on this, and they've been informed of this too. In fact, on their baraminology list that they have for their art kinds, they openly admit the only reason humans aren't included with the quote-unquote pongids is because the Bible says that they're not. So, that's not scientific. Otangelo just he's talking out of both sides of his mouth, because he'll say, well, mammal has scientific connotations to it. Well, does he not think that all of the other categories do as well? Primates have criteria, and we fit all of them. In fact, you can take the order primates and not include humans and group plenty of animals into it, and then when you do include humans and try to group them into a preconceived list of criteria for all animals, that's where we fall. We have large brains accounting for body size, binocular color vision, grasping, dexterous hands. We have fingernails and not claws, flexible shoulders for our unique means of locomotion. Then you look at the next level and you say, well, okay, well then what order do we belong, or what infraorder rather do we belong to? And we're anthropoids because we have all of those previously mentioned traits, and then we also have derived social organizations that are specific to it. We have unique hind feet structures, a specific dental formula. Our orbits are closed in the back. You go down that list. You could do catarrhines, you could do hominoids, you could do hominids, you could do hominins, and that's where we land. I mean, it's so funny to me that he brought up Carl Linnaeus, Carolus Linnaeus, because Linnaeus grouped humans with the other apes. This is something that his famous quote, with regard to that, because he sat down when he was a creationist, till he died. But when he sat down and he actually got to lay eyes on other hominoid skeletons, and this is paraphrasing, of course, but his quote was something along the lines of, I can think of not a single reason not to group man with simian or simian with man, lest I bring, down all of the theologians upon my head. And maybe I ought to, by virtue of the discipline, right? So, Otangelo has no leg to stand on. He can come up here and talk all day about abiogenesis and, read stuff or even have it memorized. But when it comes to admitting that humans are apes, he's got nothing. None of the creationists do, which is why the more clever ones, like Standing for Truth, just own it.
So what is the discrepancy here? You said you had a 2019 poll that said it was 18%, and now he's He said a 2017 poll is 38%. Have they
I
lost?
put it in the side chat.
Have they lost 20 points in 2 years?
The nuns have been really gaining ground, especially after this election year. So it's not unreasonable, but I can't say for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. But shit, I mean, 38% would scare the shit out of me. 18% scares the hell out of me.
Erica, I feel bad. I did not mean to cost you a one-on-one. It's just,
No.
he comes in here and he reads and reads and reads and reads, which is a gish gallop. That's all that is. And I told him in the chat, if he was still there, he can even talk to, for 5 minutes straight, but just don't freaking read the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I told him he could read for 20 seconds. He could read for 15 seconds, maybe even 46 seconds. But after a minute, it's just gish gallop.
Hey, everybody out there watching, Otangelo gave me a downvote, so counteract that by giving me a like. So thank you.
No, I mean, and that's like, you guys host him on here all the time and let him speak as much as he wants, but I'm kind of with you. Like, I'm not here to get read to. Like, if he wants to paraphrase it into his own words, then that's totally his prerogative, and I'll listen to him, monologue all day about that stuff if he wants to, as long as, everyone gets an appropriate amount of time to respond. But
you guys know,
I think that's the problem.
Can I respond to that? I mean, you know why he does that. The reason why he has to read and quote like that is he's so afraid to make a mistake. If he actually has a one-on-one conversation and answers you directly, he's going to make a mistake because he has trouble thinking on the fly like that. And because I've seen him do it before many times, and he's on this channel and he's gotten himself trapped. So that's why he's just petrified, because he knows he's going to embarrass himself if he speaks to you directly. So he has to read something, and that's the reason why he does it.
From what I understand, the majority of his blog and what I've seen of it is a lot of copy and pasting. He doesn't do a lot of rephrasing into his own words on there either, which, Otangelo deserves credit where credit is due, because he comes on here and he tries to have a conversation usually. I mean, that's more than you can say for a lot of the YouTube creationists right now. But, I understand where you guys are coming from, where it's like no one really wants to get read to. So if he wants to prepare something in advance that's maybe in his own words rather than pulling up Answers in Genesis of all organizations, I mean, and that's like Answers in Genesis by their own admission has massive problems that they're trying to solve with young earth creationism. I mean, those guys know they have an issue with heat and radiation, for example, for having their global flood, and they admit that. But something that the creationists here on YouTube do all the time is they pick and choose pieces from various models in order to have something that lacks any issues whatsoever, which you can't do. That's not how models work, right? I mean, a lot of the statements made in the model of the Answers in Genesis presents with the catastrophic plate tectonics, for example, just are not copacetic with the shit that they'll pull from hydroplate, right? Like it doesn't work, and they'll sit there and do it all day long. And I don't know. I'm getting like increasingly frustrated with kind of interacting with the YouTube creationists, because I've been here on YouTube for like almost 2 years, or maybe 2 years exactly, something like that, and it's just the same exact conversations.
The thing that really kills me, and I'm sure it kills you and Dr. Dan and all the rest, is we put in all of this time and we get all these papers and we put out a really, really good counter, and then Standing for Truth says, "Oh, they're dodgeball, team dodgeball," and he just discounts it without addressing. Does he ever address anything that we counter him with?
So Standing for Truth has a very, very classic MO, which is he will present premise A, and then someone will come along, usually from this group, or the group of usual suspects that we all kind of tend to know, will come in and say, well, A cannot be true because of B, right? Standing will release another video that simply reasserts A without teaching B. You have to address the critiques to your hypothesis or your model. That's like the whole way science works. right? Like, if you're not going to address the critiques, then you don't have anything. You're standing on nothing.
Yeah, and that's why I just eventually that's why I won't go on their channels. It's just like, what are we going to talk about? Like last night, he asked me, "What is my best proof for evolution?" and that's it. And that's just such a ridiculous question that it's not going to turn out well if you go on their channel. So I don't know.
Well, and the issue with standing for, like, my classic interaction with him that I remember, that's just very typical of exactly that, and it's why I don't interact with Standing for Truth. I gave him a list of questions, and I said, if you can answer these questions like in a single video, it can be 4 hours long if you want, but if you can answer these questions, then I'll interact with you again. And he's not done that. He simply claims that he has, but over the past 4 months or so after I released that video, when he's claiming he's answering these questions, I watched his videos, and he did no such thing. He reasserted A. So the example that is classic is he comes out and says there's no good transitional species in human evolution. But, of course, tossing aside the fact that we've got well over 20 established hominins with hundreds, thousands of specimens comprising, members of them all combined. Two of my favorites are Homo habilis and Australopithecus sediba, which have very, very mosaic compositions. Their individual structures are in and of themselves also mosaic, right? The brain case, the overall shape is somewhat derived, but the size is still very small. And so I come forward and I say, look, you say we don't have these good transitionals. These are the perfect transitionals. So he comes back and says, no, those are garbage taxons. They're not real hominins. They're people grab bones out of the dirt and they compose these organisms out of them, and they aren't actually legitimate species. So I come back with a combined like 8 hours or 4 hours or something like that of going through the specific papers of the in situ finds of, say, Australopithecus sediba, MH1 and MH2, who in some portions of this skeleton were in articulation. And yet creationists will say, well, the arm is ape, but the shoulder is human. And it's like, well, you can't say that when we found them in articulation with one another in the ground with pictures of it. Not to mention, Bernard Wood came out with this excellent paper in, I want to say it was like 2009 or something like that, on laser scanning of joint articular surfaces, where he was basically like, you can tell by taking two joints if they came from the same individual based off of how they interacted, the scraping patterns and things like that. And so I do this 8-hour video explaining, hey, MH1 and MH2 are in articulation. You can't say it's a wastebasket species that put together bones from different species, right? If it's in articulation, you simply can't do that.
Right.
And he comes back saying it's a wastebasket species with pieces of bones put together where they shouldn't be. Doesn't address the articulation, doesn't address the joint surfaces and laser scanning, doesn't touch any of it, hand waves it. And that's why he's not worth dealing with until he actually changes his behavior. They're not interested in answers. It's the illusion of answers.
And that's why he won't.
I got a question for you, Erica, and that goes back to what just happened with Otangelo. One of the things that frustrates me is when I ask someone a question, "What do you think about this?" and then they cite me what someone else thinks about it. That wasn't my question. I'm asking you, and the reason I'm asking you is to see what your thinking process is to come to that conclusion. If we can all cite papers, we can do all of that, but isn't it at some point or how do I phrase this? There are moments in a conversation where it's much more important to know how the person came to their conclusion, other than what a paper says. Don't you think there's any merit in that? Because that's basically what just happened with Otangelo. He read a part from AIG. We can all go over to AIG and read what it says. It says nothing about how Otangelo got to his conclusion.
Yeah, also, I don't even mind the idea of like pulling the paper up on the screen and highlighting 2 or 3 lines, like Professor Dave did on his videos, about James Tour. He would highlight 2 or 3 lines, read them, highlight another 2 or 3 lines, read them, but wouldn't go on and on and on and on and on for minutes, Gish Gallop.
Yeah, but it tells you nothing about their thinking process. And,
well, that's true. That's true.
And the thing that Erica asked Otangelo was a very precise question. And there was a difference in logic between him claiming whether or not he was a mammal and whether or not he was an ape. And that's why I think that particular question was really important. And I would have liked to hear his answer, how he came to that conclusion. And then it's frustrating that people then start reading out a website.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because it seems to me like he Googled that on the fly and then read it, because if he had read it prior, he wouldn't be using that as the source to back him up. Because listening to Answers in Genesis, the portion that he read to us here was Answers in Genesis has an issue with the colloquial use of animal. They're okay with mammal because there's criteria behind it, but they don't like animal because of it implies that humans are just another thing. They want to be special. So they don't like the idea of animal. And in the same way, the connotation of ape implies something that is primitive and unruly. They don't like that. They want to be special and sophisticated and unique.
Well, personally, I've always thought that the theist view actually devalues human life when you think about it, because because it says that the humans are created sick and imperfect, and we need a savior to save us, whereas if you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, like humans are pretty lucky to be who we are. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the way I see it anyway.
Did Otangelo give us a link to that AIG thing that he was reading? That would have been sufficient, but I don't think he did. Does anyone?
It's not in private chat anyway.
Yeah.
Erica, he gave us a link to Wikipedia, but not a AIG.
Okay, Jason.
Oh, I just wanted to say one thing, which I think reiterates what I've said previously, which is that you can have very in-depth conversations around evidence that supports evolutionary theory, that supports creationism. You can have those back and forth, but the fact of the matter is that we have overwhelming scientific consensus that supports evolutionary theory. And so we can have people who are, LPP's called me out on this topic, but you can be somebody who has no background in biology, and you can think that you are evaluating information correctly and are proposing a hypothesis that, the Earth is 6,000 years old, or that we did not evolve in that capacity. But the huge preponderance of experts who study this for years and years and years and years and years are all in the other direction. So we can go down these rabbit holes of like, well, what about this paper? And what about this paper? And what about this paper? But if you took, 100 of the top biologists and scientists and put them in a room, nobody's going to be on the other side. Very few people are going to try to argue that. And the reason is because the scientific consensus of thousands and thousands and thousands of all kinds of experiments and research efforts have indicated that evolutionary theory is legit. So
and the issue you highlighted it perfectly right there at the end, because, you get these guys and they'll say, well, consensus doesn't mean it's right. And the answer to that is, well, yes, of course, duh. Correct. But the last time a massive consensus was overturned that actually involved scientists who had competing opinions was like with relativity, essentially. And then, even then, it didn't overturn Newtonian physics. It simply added a new realm to it. And they'll bring up, oh, well, people used to think that, everything rotated around the Earth. But the reason they thought that wasn't because of scientific experimentation or actual tests and hypotheses and things like that. The reason they thought that was because they simply did. They read the Bible, for instance, in some cases, or they looked up and they thought, well, it kind of looks like that. So that's the case. That's the position we're going to take. That's not analogous to what overturning evolution would look like, because you have to overturn precisely what you said, Jason, which is hundreds of thousands of, and this is the key part, experiments. These are experiments that have come to fruition, or rather predictions that have come to fruition through experiments. And what I challenge, I don't know if you saw this the other day, Speed, but I was in the chat on one of LPP streams, and I was watching a movie, so I wasn't actually listening to anything they were saying, although I was told Standing for Truth did a lot of shit talking, which is kind of funny. But in the chat, I was discussing with everyone, and I said, here's what I want, okay? I want someone to present to me a creationist prediction that was exclusively for creationism, that then underwent testing and experimentation and was correct. We're not talking about something that's agnostic to the conversation, like what Baumgartner, or I think it was Baumgartner, coming up with magnetic fields for Venus or whatever, or things of that nature. I'm talking about something that was specifically for creationism, because here's the thing, there's not a single one. There is not one prediction that is specifically to creationism that has come to fruition. Not one single one. They brought up cold slabs, and I thought to myself, oh, that's quite interesting, cold slabs. I hear that one a lot. What's the source? So they give me a 1994 paper by Baumgartner. So I go to look at the paper, and there's not one mention of cold slabs in the paper.
So he didn't actually predict cold slabs like they say.
No, not according to the paper that Standing for Truth provided me.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I was wondering where the prediction was. Because I mean, there's a lot of reasons why there should be cold slabs that we were talking about with Orge, but I wanted to see Baumgartner's prediction, and then Standing for Truth is always saying we have all these predictions we're making, and I keep asking him for just one prediction. Has he ever given us one? What are they predicting?
He uses Jensen a lot, and the thing about Jensen is Jensen does two things. He makes predictions that he's not willing to test that are creationist exclusive, or he makes predictions that work for both models, quote unquote. Yeah. And those ones he's willing to test.
If you kind of step back and you say, okay, we think that there are some scientists that have legitimate research that supports a creationist view. If that's the case, and they are publishing peer-reviewed articles, then over time, we should be seeing a shift where scientists are actually considering those things.
Precisely.
But that's not actually happening. And if folks like Standing for Truth, etc., feel like that they, like, LPP's like, I can research this stuff, and I've come up with these ideas. Publish your work. Like, if you think that the things that you've come up with are so revolutionary, put them to scrutiny of other scientists. What ends up happening is that if you trace that trail back, the only thing you can come to is them saying there's a conspiracy. There's some reason that scientists don't want to look at this evidence, which is legit, but they're unwilling to look at it. But I'm going to tell you right now, scientists, if a scientist could publish something that blows out of the water a theory, they're going to do it, man. If they can legitimately do that, then make their career. They want that. People try to do that all the time. But if it can't stand up to scrutiny, then it's just not going to get published.
Well, and we're not just talking about something that is like hush hush, no one wants to talk about it, or has very few supporters, a la intelligent design but accepting an ancient earth and evolution. Like there are plenty of Sigard is a great scientist who believes that God intervened and spurred abiogenesis or the proto-eukaryotic transition or something along those lines. The young earth creationism is the fringe of the fringe. Like we're talking about something that is so beyond indefensible in the face of all of geology, all of physics, all of astronomy, that it's not even something that people pretend to look at. It's something that people make fun of for a reason. I mean, and like, it's fun for us I love talking to creationists. I think it's really enjoyable. I love sitting down and reading about their claims and thinking, okay, well, why is it that they believe the way that they do? But frankly, it's quite similar to why people like to read about flat earthers and why they believe what they believe. Now, ID is a bit of a different story. ID is something that you can have more of a conversation about, but it has a completely different problem, because unlike creationism, it lacks a model entirely. There's nothing that ID says. At least creationism, young Earth creationism, will be like, well, the Earth should be young. ID is just a messy gesturing at, well, this looks kind of complex, maybe someone did it. And in that sense, there are at least more almost exclusively engineers, people who design things for a living, who will look at biology and say, well, it looks like there's some design here. But that is a completely different animal than saying the Earth is 6,000 years old and evolution doesn't exist.
Yeah. I mean, my take is that folks have been fleshing out the young Earth creationist model, whatever you want to call it, for a while, and and as a result, like, they naturally have to put out like tangible reasons why certain things are the way they are, and when you do that, then geologists, biologists, paleontologists, etc., can just so easily refute this. It doesn't fit into the overall model, and that's what I think makes young Earth creationism, just like you were saying, the fringe of the fringe. But ID is, again, it's amorphous. It's nebulous. Exactly, and that allows folks to be able to kind of pontificate on these areas, and because the topic is so complicated, it allows for there to be gaps where people can be like, well, maybe that is the case. It makes sense. What if I found a watch on the who created the watch? It makes it easy for them to latch onto that. But young Earth creationism, there's so much evidence in the opposition of that is physical that it becomes harder.
It's a total preclusion of it. Like with ID, there's aspects that it's like, okay, well, if you want to take that stance and say someone, seeded the Earth or created the conditions for life to form on Earth or help things along in the proto-eukaryotic transition, that's just not even close to the same thing as the lattice of preclusion of evidence, right? That the rest of all of science has in opposition to young Earth creationism, which is precisely why, I actually read this on the Debate Evolution subreddit. I used to frequent that a lot before I was here on YouTube. But Talk Origins is a site that specifically combats young Earth creationism, and it hasn't updated in 16 years. And all of the preclusions still work because young Earth creationism has not evolved, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
it's the same thing as it always was. The arguments are the same. Oh, C14, we're finding that in certain rocks. Or wow, look at the lunar recession. I guess that's just, the Earth can't be that old, or else the moon would be right on top of the Earth, killing everything. It's there's too much salinity in the ocean. It's the same stuff. It's exactly the same stuff. Oh, Tangelo was using lunar recession like 6 months ago here on this channel, and I was floored by it. I was like,
they were talking about the salt in the ocean yesterday or the day before. One of those guys that like to dress up like a field geologist, with the hat and everything, was on
the cosplayers. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
probably.
There's he's got about 5 of them that all dress up with that same costume. I wonder if
it's the Ian Juby effect.
Yeah, I gotta get one of those costumes.
I miss Ian Juby, who famously shot his own boat while in the middle of a lake.
Amazing. Amazing.
to disprove evolution, no less.
Oh my. Say, guys, we're gonna take a slight commercial break here. So MathPig and I think some other people are having like a marathon for Pale Blue Mama tonight to help her get out of a difficult living situation where apparently she's having trouble even charging her phone. So she needs help. And there's a GoFundMe page, and I've linked MathPig's video, and I've linked the GoFundMe in the description. And everybody should stop by and give something. So anyway, it'd be kind of cool to help her out.
Yeah.
So we got that, and maybe we're gonna get the Darth later, but anyway, carry on. Commercial over.
Hey, wait. Can I kick in another commercial because we got James Downard in the chat, and I think I'm probably extremely late to this. He recently did a debate whether or not Noah's Ark was found. Has any of you seen that debate?
Was that modern day debate?
It
was.
That was our modern day debate, and one of the debaters was our dear friend Otangelo, who said absolutely nothing during the entire debate, which was surprising.
Wow.
That was cool.
It's probably my favorite debate so far. I haven't laughed that much in a while. It was awesome.
Yeah,
so what we did get was evidence for a flood of facts coming from James, but that was it.
RJ does a show on Wednesday night, I think every Wednesday, like clockwork.
Evolution
at
Hour.
9 o'clock. Yeah.
9 p.m. Central.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if enough people are watching that. So
It's really good.
Yeah, Evolution Hour is great.
yes. I'll try to link that channel in the description for people that are having trouble finding it. So okay.
Yeah,
Commercial's over.
well, there's some interesting stuff where like RJ gets on and he does the Evolution Hour and he kills it every single week, and I think you're right. I think not enough people are paying attention to it. We should all check it out more because you got
And his books are the encyclopedia, and his website are the encyclopedia of creationism, the history and everything with encyclopedic references. And
he's got that reference section is impressive.
Yeah,
I wish he'd do like a Monday night Roman history hour, because he could start from like early Roman history and it would just never end. It would just go on and on. That would be great.
And the creationist model is that the Romans chased the Native Americans out of Asia and into the United States in 400 AD, I think. I'd like to know more about that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. They say that out loud. They have said that out loud on Standing for Truth's channel.
I'm just laughing right now. That's like a cartoon.
Yeah, 1,600 years ago, that's when they arrived. There are no artifacts from before that. So, I don't know. So,
also, I see. So, Urge's in the side chat. I wanted to touch on something that maybe you guys haven't heard of yet, and I thought it was kind of amusing. But apparently, our dear friend Standing for Truth offered to pay Urge $100 to debate on his channel, which is very funny because, why is he? I guess he's paying people to show up now, or maybe it's a one-time thing with Urge. I'm not sure, but it's still interesting.
I got a new book.
Ooh.
Yeah, the interesting thing, just reading through it just casually, okay, the layers, all the stuff that they claimed sorted with, in the flood geologically, amazingly, they have different magnesium and calcium content. And how the hell do you sort ions in a flood, a turbulent flood, into layers?
Well, you don't.
And the amount of work in this book and a number of others on sedimentation and the whole process of concretion and all that, it's just amazing. You cannot believe in a 6,000-year-old Earth. If you just if you pick up a rock, it's hard to believe it. They have the craziest ideas.
That's why the geologists that work for AIG, the legitimate geologists, the non-McQueens of the situation, right? That's why they take the position that we've got something of an appearance of age, at least for on-Earth objects. Snelling will take the position that the universe indeed does look like it's quite old, which is interesting. It's not you don't get that kind of transparency very often. But you're right. Another fun one is the magnetic field reversals. If you look at how the metals, the directions that they face in the various strata, you'll see that you've got to have just an absolutely ungodly amount of reversals in the year of the flood, which is not going to be going over quite so well. It's pretty wild. The geology is something that will never cease to amaze me. How they managed to kind of get around all that stuff from, and my pet is the limestone, right? My favorite pet usage is limestone.
This book that I showed, it's from 1972, Developments in Sedimentology. they get into fossilization and limestone heavily, and it's really wonderful. I think I can probably find a link to it for you. But anyway, got it at a used bookstore. I was so thrilled.
The aspects of like what's called sequence stratigraphy are fascinating. So if you're ever interested in the sedimentology in that respect, stratigraphers look at layers of rock and attempt to match those up across the globe. Like you can do that between to suggest the associations of plate tectonics, that aspects of like carbonate geology that form on shorelines, all that stuff. It's so insurmountable to support an old Earth. It's crazy. You get into any one of those areas and it refutes those positions. So,
well, I mean, it's
wonderful illustrations too.
If you take a minute too to look at how the sedimentation is laid out, right, in the stratigraphy, and then you look at the critters that you find in it, like plankton. Like you look at the evolutionary sequences that plankton managed to go through in just a handful of layers, and then you're thinking, if all of this is laid down during the flood, then you've got plankton occupying different niches, or rather, the same niche, changing like by the hour in order to explain the type of evolution that we're seeing here. And of course, these are all sun-loving photosynthetic plankton, which are somehow managing to thrive and evolve in the period of time that the creationists suppose is raining nonstop for half a year.
I mean, even if you look at things like tree rings, ice cores, all of the facets that are kind of have an association with uniformitarianism, that you could be like, okay, we can trace back ice cores to say what happened in like the 1500s or the 1400s. We can be like, look, we see a particular event that occurred. It matches identically with these tree rings or ice cores. And then you can just go back farther and farther and find associated relationships. It starts to really, I think, there's so much evidence in all these different areas, and we're not even talking about things like isotopic geochemistry or anything like that. So
it's all interconnected, and that's the
corroboration is the killer.
Yeah.
That's why when Stanley asked me last night to come on the stream and bring my best evidence for evolution, it's just like facepalm, right? It's like what the fuck?
Anyways,
my favorite that's just very brief is one that Ken Wolgamoth brought up when I interviewed him on my channel, and he's an old Earth creationist, and he's made a lot of excellent presentations out there kind of discussing why the Earth is indeed very ancient. And the one that he uses that is also in the book Grand Canyon Monument to an Ancient Earth is this idea that you can look at the mid-Atlantic ridge and you can see how there's seafloor spreading going on. And the further away from the mid-Atlantic ridge, the older the rock, right? And then you can look at the rate at which plates are moving, the rate at plate tectonics are shifting on the surface of the mantle. And you can compare the radiometric dates with the rate that the continents are currently moving, and they match. Which is to say that if you're a young Earth creationist, you have to explain why two completely independent lines of evidence, the movement of the tectonic plates and the radioactive decay, are mapping precisely on top of one another. And then you add in the dendrochronology, and then you add in the ice cores, and then you continue to look at these sequences of evolutionary history also through that geologic strata, and it becomes indefensible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you're hitting on the exact issue, which Speed is kind of touching upon, which is that we're talking about a complicated interactive model of the Earth, which like, just like with the flat Earth guys, they want to be able to say, well, if I do this and I do this, I can get this to work out. But when we have all these differing components interacting, they all have to really work together. And if they don't work together, then something is amiss. And so that is the strength that we have. hundreds of lines of evidence that all corroborate each other. If I cherry pick one single thing and try to make an argument for creationism, I might be able to do that. But it totally falls apart if I start to have an interaction in terms of that model.
Well, and that's why they won't defend the model. They'll take specific small things and harp on those and run them into the ground rather than consider, as LPP likes to say, the macro picture.
Yeah. Yep.
In this book, they have chapter 13 is recent dolomites, and they're actually watching the sedimentation process, and they've got a lot of information. This was as of 1972, so you can imagine how much work they've done in 50 years. So, but it's really interesting. There's ongoing research in watching sedimentation happen, and it happens so slowly that it's just. I don't know what the hell, how they support their idea that these. Things
they'll appeal to rapid sedimentation using a paper from IU, Indiana University, where they showed that a mudstone can deposit rapidly in a current faster than normal. Except once again, we have to appreciate the fact that when mudstone deposits rapidly, it has a telltale diagnostic sign, little pockets called floccules. And so if you don't see the floccules, then it wasn't deposited in a current. And then therefore, if we don't see floccules in like pretty much all of our strata, then you can't appeal to this idea that a rapidly moving current during Noah's flood deposited it. So therefore, you can't use that study. I mean, they just chase their tails on these issues. And like, you almost have to feel a little bit bad sometimes, because it's like, they feel, I mean, I was going to do a like psychoanalysis thing, but that's just not, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. There's no hope.
Yeah. I mean, it's the hope is that those numbers are going down. I mean, less and less people fall for this every year. And it'll continue to fall. It'll never fully go away, but it'll end up, being around the levels of flat Earth probably, or lower, because flat Earth at least has a charm to it.
Who did we lose? Did we lose Scott again?
We lost Jay.
No. Oh, Jay? Oh, I was, because we're probably going to talk about Darth at some point, and Darth kind of picks on Jay and Jefferson pretty badly.
Is Darth a young create? Is Darth a
Jefferson and his brother Jay are trolls? I've dealt with them before.
There you go.
I think he is. He literally believes the Earth is 6,000 years old, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a yes.
Yes, he does.
Okay, that's actually.
I was watching some YouTube video, maybe on Stephen Milo or one of the other ancient history kind of videos. And they were talking about these villages they found that were like from 6,000 BC, and it just kind of blows my mind.
Göbekli Tepe is from 10,000 BC or 12, depending on who you ask.
But these were interesting settled villages that they had the outline of kind of the, I guess I'll call it the foundation of their little village hut, and it was just like, how could a flood? I don't even know why I think in those terms. I guess I'm always thinking in terms of questions to ask people who believe there really was a worldwide flood. And it's just so ridiculous if they would just look at it,
Well, you'll get... Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm worked up today because I watched that.
Oh, I know.
I watched Dave's second video, and I started thinking about professional creationists, and it really just started working me up. I was like, people do this and get paid obscene amounts of money, and I'm like, it makes me mad.
I'm glad we could be your platform to vent, Erica. This is therapy for Erica.
So, Erica, if I get Professor Dave and maybe Bruce Damer to come on, will you and Dr. Dan join us?
I would love to, and I'm certain Dan. I know Dan was trying to do something tonight. I think he's got nothing going on. I can certainly ask him. I know he'd be interested because he's been watching Dave's videos as well. I'd love to talk to Dave about it. I just want to pat him on the back because I thought he killed it. I really did.
Yeah, we might try to set that up for next week. We'll see if we can do that. We're kind of going over the last part of our Cells Are Not a Machine paper tonight, and we got to get that done so we can go on to another paper. So that's what and there's also that marathon going on tonight. I'm not sure how many channels are involved in that, but I think there's like 5 channels where they're gonna do this pale blue mama thing.
Oh,
And
right.
yeah, we should stop over there. But anyway, I'll try to set that up because we've been talking to him. So
Yeah, cool.
yep. Yeah, I don't know. I get wound up every morning, and I start pulling paper after paper after paper, and then I burn out on them by about 11 o'clock, and it's like, shit, I'm not even going to talk about them.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's kind of a tightrope that you're watching or walking, because it's like, on one hand it's fun to talk about, and it's fun to kind of like dissect and get into the claims and think, okay, like, well, how could they make this work? Like, how are they mentally taking this position? How do they manage to kind of justify it? But on the other hand, you don't want to give them undue attention.
I think I'm going to offer to debate Standing for Truth on his channel on one subject, the functionality of DDX11L2, nothing else. We just want to talk about that one gene, that one function, and I want him to convince me that is a highly functional gene.
He won't agree to that. There's no, he steers very clear of specific subjects like that.
Oh yeah. Yep. He was also talking about the first two things that I did on YouTube at all were on his channel. There were 2 hours. We did a chromosome 2, and we did something on evolution. And it was the first time I'd ever been on YouTube. And he talks about how he really kicked my ass. But in those 2 hours, I brought up the ApoA1 Milano argument. And have you heard them talk about that this year? I think I shut them down so badly that it's no longer on their menu.
It'll recirculate. Give them 2 years, it'll be back.
Yeah, they'll pick it up again. But it was amazing because Ramat, in his book, his little book that he put out, that weird ass formatted thing he had online, he had 2 references, right, and they were the most ridiculous references, and I pointed that out, and then all of a sudden they went silent on ApoA1 Milano, just silent. I mean, it was amazing.
I mean, Ramat is kind of a head case. He is
sort of a head case.
I don't know that he's 100% well.
Oh, coconut water. That's a new thing. So Standing for Truth was drinking coconut water last night. And I guess that came from Ramat. But I haven't heard about this whole coconut water thing.
Standing for Truth goes to a chiropractor. So let's just let that sink in for a second.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just not like these people. I can't speak for Standing for Truth, but I know at least Ramat puts some serious anti-vax stuff out there. I mean, and therein lies the problem. It's not young Earth creationism. It's what tends to accompany it, right? The actual dangerous stuff.
But see, okay, so I'm glad you brought up vaccinations, because you could go through all these diffuse topics: vaccinations, climate change, creationism, flat Earth. I mean, you could go down the list of items that have this. They are topics where there is some aspect of diffuse understanding in the populace. There's an allowance that people can come up with approaches that that's not so clear cut. It's a complicated subject, and that allows for like this cognitive dissonance to take over, where like the views kind of are, somebody's rational view may be objectively different than like their group, and they have a conflict. They have to resolve that conflict. It causes them stress, where they're like, oh, one part of me is telling me that this is true, but all my cohorts telling me something different. I have to resolve that in my mind. And I think that all these issues are all wrapped up. Why do people believe in young Earth? Why do people not want to get vaccinated? Why do people rebel against climate change? Why do they have a propensity to think that flat Earth is true? All those are all wrapped up into that kind of the social cognitive bias issues, and which is an interesting topic in and of itself.
Yeah, that's like a book waiting to. I'm sure someone's written on it. Why all of the kind of what's the word I'm looking for? The attitude that unites all of these ideas under the same umbrella. And I don't know what that looks like. I mean, that's so far outside of my understanding, or my area of training, I guess, that it's like I can only speculate. But I'm sure people have kind of bopped around ideas. There's a lot. I know conspiracies tend to be rooted in this idea of
Correct.
I know the truth. Only I am capable of understanding it. I'm special. I'm the one with the wool taken from over my eyes, kind of.
Yeah, cognitive dissonance. There's been a lot of research recently on this topic, particularly given this issue with Trump in office and people latching on like QAnon. QAnon is an example of cognitive dissonance where they're like, I can't believe that this is happening. It has to be a conspiratorial explanation, to this. It can't possibly be the most reasonable explanation. There has to be something going on here. And so that resolves it in their mind. They're like, aha, that's what it is. It's the pizza, there's a porn thing, there's a whatever, like the child porn going on in the pizza place.
Yeah.
And that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh, Hillary Clinton's colluding with the Russians to give them uranium. And that explains it to them. That alleviates that conflict that they have. And that is much more prevalent, I think, in the last 5 years. I think Trump has brought it on. So,
well, there's a really interesting. I read. I just finished The Death of Expertise a while back, and I'm reading The War on Science now, and they cover a lot of like those similar topics and compare the attitudes towards science, like in the space race and like around the atomic era versus the attitudes kind of coming off of that, and how there's this weird relationship the public has with science and trusting the experts, right? It's like the experts can be right 1 billion times a year, and if they're wrong once, everyone notices because it usually has consequences. And this fear of, the nuclear energy, that sounds scary. What about Chernobyl? What about when they were wrong? What about thalidomide? What about all these, scary things that happen when science goes awry? And then they forget that, science is just the pursuit of the betterment of society. And look at all the good things that we get every single second of our life, right? Like,
I came in right after that post-World War II thing with the atom bomb. And you could see it developing in television where there was this fear, of science, right, based on the atom bomb. And then we got into, and then I became a teenager right around, the whole love thing with hippies and all of that. And then these guys all grew up and went to college. We all grew up and entered college age. And then it sort of became this health kick, which I call, there was like this big push for drinking milk and how wholesome it was. And then the organics came out and all of the hippies sobered up and got jobs and then became this sort of like organic generation. And the whole thing kind of turned into this backwash of anti-science. And it did, but it kind of went away for a while in the 80s and 90s. And now it's just rearing up again and we're seeing another wave of it, and it's kind of crazy. But so you've got a book on the history of that, Erica?
Yeah, the War on Science covers like the changing in attitude of how the public viewed science, sort of at first of all the inception of this pursuit of knowledge in the Renaissance, and up through the founding of America, and how Europe versus America treated these new ideas coming up on the forefront. Has some really interesting takes too on like theory versus application, and how Europe for a while had this idea of like the why, the foundational whys, whereas America had more of this, how can we apply it to further society, right? And like there are pros and cons to both. But yeah, it's really interesting. And you can all of a sudden, the way that this guy paints it, you can kind of see how we ended up where we are. And like, certainly I would agree that Trump exacerbated that problem, right? But the infection was already there.
Yeah.
I would argue that for quite some time there's been this inherent distrust of the experts, of the elite. How dare they know something that I don't know? When in reality, the way that society functions is you have to trust the experts. You trust your plumber as the expert of your pipes. You trust your mechanic as the expert of your car. It doesn't have to be framed as this ivory tower thing. It's just people divide up labor to have a functional society, and different people become adept in different subjects. And no one can be an expert at all of them. So you inherently end up having to trust someone. It's just interesting where this divide has occurred.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So should we get to Darth? or not.
No, yeah, let's do it.
Here we go. Let's I can't wait. I'm just so excited.
Maybe we will woo Jay Patrick back into the stream.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I have that's really, earth-shattering or good on this thing, but I clipped a few things they're talking about. But what I thought was interesting is the questions that Argotha was asking Darth, but I gotta switch my audio here for a minute.
Argotha is involved.
Argotha was asking Darth questions that were curiously very good, like about abstracts and objects, and Darth kind of stuttered a little bit. And it was kind of interesting, and he admitted that he was not as well read on universals as he could be. And I thought that was an interesting admission. I've never heard him say anything like that before, and I just thought it was kind of cool. I'm not sure if I had it clipped or not, but I could try. But let me switch audio here and just see if we can find anything worth talking about here. And there's some interesting things he said about God being. He was pushing back on naturalism, saying that God is this universal, concrete thing. Very interesting, I thought. I don't know, but we'll see. Danny probably knows more about this guy. And why am I not switching over to my? Can I hear you guys? Nope.
Can you hear us?
Nah, now I can. It took a minute for the. Took a minute for the.
It's probably because no one was talking.
Oh, okay. Maybe that was it.
Yeah. That was
okay.
It.
So let's roll it and see what happens.
But we were talking about Jefferson Spatchcock's atheism. But he doesn't want to be an honest interlocutor. So he resorts to these deceitful tactics. This is what many atheists do. And they figured they would rather just sit there, like the lying lawyer for the tobacco companies, just lie through their teeth, right? No, I'm not the one who sucks. Okay, you and your brother are pathological liars in the debate circuit.
Devious, yeah.
They are
horrible.
devious and deceitful. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean-spirited, but I'm going to call a spade a spade.
Have you ever spoken
if you say, I'm
or
sorry,
debated
but
like
it's probably that you're
an
not
atheist
sorry.
or a non-Christian that proposed an ultimate other than the Christian God? Like, did they have an idea, or did they just dodge all the time?
Occasionally, they'll be real stupid and they'll go reality, or they'll go the universe. Now, you and I both know that they can't defend such a notion. And then when we ask them to unpack and expand and defend that notion, they just ramble incoherently. They first of all, the notion of a plurality of independent, eternally existing things as an abstract set, okay, cannot be ultimate. You can't.
Okay, here's where people have responded to his question that the ultimate would be reality or the cosmos, right? And I think the problem with that is you're falling for his ultimate bait. Because what the hell? What's that?
You're right there.
Yeah. What is the ultimate? How does that even make sense? That there's an ultimate singular thing that basically is reality. I see reality as kind of a plurality, right? And he talks about this abstract set of all things. And he says they're independent, or he said they're interdependent. I can't remember how he worded it.
He wants to say that the set of all facts are somehow grounded in a singular thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
You just don't need. Why would I need to accept that there needs to be a grounding relation?
It's got to be because they're trying to frame an opposing opinion in a way that they can kind of understand it, because that's how they see things. And as there is a pinnacle, there is an ultimate. They do this in science with fitness. There has to be an ultimate fitness, right? And I think it kind of feels like they're doing that here with just taking their kind of stance and applying it broadly across everyone else's positions. Well, if God's not ultimate, what is? Like you guys said, who says there has to be?
Yeah.
And
there are Christians that think that like God's contingent. Like Richard Swinburne thinks God is contingent.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Absolutely hilarious.
And they kind of do the same thing with certainty, this ultimate certainty with a capital C. And and I've always pushed back and said that those are basically religious ideas or theistic ideas if you start to adopt them. I mean, if you try to figure out how would you be absolutely certain of something?
Yeah.
You would have to have godlike powers and omniscience in order to be absolutely certain.
Well, does Darth ever talk about certainty? Because I feel like certainty is irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't think he does, but I've had others talk about certainty or use that sort of, as sort of an attack on naturalism or whatever.
Yeah, it shouldn't be an attack on anything, because certainty, it doesn't factor as a condition for knowledge at all. Because
right,
we talked about this, right? Like the idea is that you can be extremely certain about X, but X is still false. You could just be super wrong, right? Or you can be very not confident about your belief and be totally right.
Yeah.
But Darth uses that argument though. I mean, he's like, well, are you certain about that? Like, how do you know, when you say, oh, what is ultimately the foundation for reason? And you're like, well, I give an answer. And he's like, well, how do you know that? Are you certain about that? If you're not certain about that, then you have a disconnect. But his perspective is he is certain about it, given his special and divine revelation, that it has been revealed to him, and that there can be no question that that's the case. So he may not necessarily be able to argue that certainty, but he's proposing that he has certain knowledge that what is ultimate is this personal being.
Well, you can say something can't be false, like there's some necessary truth, but that doesn't mean that, that doesn't establish certainty in any way.
I agree with you. Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I just think that his argument is obviously to make your position incoherent, that you can't know what is that absolute. But if you come back to him, his position is that absolute, that he can justify his position through divine and special revelation. And again, I don't agree that that's correct, or that he can actually provide that evidence for that certainty.
Well, it begs the question. Right?
Correct. That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly
the idea
right.
is that if you're wondering what justifies that God exists in this way, and then say that, well, God reveals, that's straight in the premise, right? God reveals implies the premise that God exists.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I know there are arguments to this of what I'm going to say, but that would be one argument against the transcendental argument, which is if you're saying, oh, if God didn't exist, rationality and reason couldn't exist, rationality and reason do exist, therefore God exists. Yeah. You could say that the initial premise is making an assumption, and it's begging the question. So
has anyone, I don't know very much about Darth, I haven't interacted with him personally, but has anyone ever taken this down put him on the defensive?
Absolutely, but they're all blocked. Jack, there's 50 or 60 people on Discord, right, that he has blocked, and they're all capable of putting Darth on the defensive. But as soon as you're on that list, like I am, right, he won't debate me. Jack, he won't debate Jack. He won't debate Tom. He won't debate, the realistic nihilist. He won't debate Pogan. He won't debate any of these people. Why? Because they know what to say exactly to put him in the defensive.
So, and how does he justify that to kind of his flock? Is he just they're not worth my time or whatever?
He has them as trolls. He literally has what he calls a troll list. Okay. And so if you're on the list, he doesn't talk to you. And then when he does, at least on Discord, he enters let's say a new server, and he says, and it's quite true what he says, though. He says, in about 1 or 2 minutes, there's going to be a fellow named Jack Aimstrike and his minions, and they are stalking me, and they are trolls. If you want me to remain here, immediately ban them from the server. That's what he does. That's like how the virus spreads, so to speak, is that he's able to immunize the environment that he's in from the people that can actually challenge him.
Yeah, and his goal is to if you go at him to be like, I need for you to explain how you have this certainty and what is divine and special revelation and where that comes from. And, he'll briefly answer those questions. He'll be like, it's divine from the word of God, blah, blah, blah. And then he immediately is going to go back to trying to put you on the defensive because he doesn't want to talk about that. So his goal is to never go down that rabbit hole. His goal is to shift away from that back to your incoherency, because if he can make you incoherent, then by default, it makes it look like his position is correct. So I don't know if he has a good argument for the divine and special revelation position. Some people have put him on that on guard.
The farthest
like that.
we've gotten with him saying is that it's some kind of circularity, but it's virtuous circular reasoning.
Virtuous circular. Anyway, I thought that's what was interesting about this clip is that Argatha is asking him questions, and he actually does start to try to put it together, like on abstract objects and things like that.
Erica, I know that you have a bad taste in your mouth because of the whole age of consent stuff with Argatha, but he muted Darth at some point in one of this stream. I don't know.
He muted Darth?
Yeah, Darth told him to shut up, and then Bob muted him, and then Darth called him a clown, and then couldn't say anything because, of course, Bob and Praise are sort of.
Oh, do you have a timestamp for that? That would be awesome.
It's right. It's during Jay's conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, the thing about Argatha is that he's a fairly good reasoner. I think that my issue with Argatha, and therefore they translates to the whole age of consent thing, is he wholesale will just be like, if the Bible says it, it's inherently moral, and that's the end of the story. So if it occurs in the Bible, he by his own kind of criteria that he set for himself, he has to allow for it. And thus, that's where the age of consent stuff comes from. But when he's not talking about what's in the Bible and just wholesale justifying all of it, he can ask some pretty good questions.
I want to ask you about that, though, Erica, about the age of consent stuff, because maybe there's an interpretation here that we could take with respect to Argatha, because if you don't know, the age of consent, like in Europe and in the southern parts of Central America, does range between 14 and 16, isn't it?
No, it goes quite low.
Not so much anymore.
Sexual relations between those people of that age category. He wasn't suggesting that because it's illegal, for instance, in many parts of the United States for two 16-year-olds to have sexual relations, right? But that's in most places in the world, it's not illegal. And maybe he was alluding to that, but I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I got in and was kind of trying to pick around and find out exactly what we were going for there. And we can get into that. I know we're kind of on a different topic right now, but the vibe that I got from him was that it was specifically less about the age of consent and more about the age that he wanted people to commit to marriage. And age of consent was kind of secondary to that, which I had an issue with. And for the record, I do think that the age of consent being that low in those areas, I think Europe's getting something wrong with that. I think, that tends to, just for
the majority of other countries, 18 is extremely high.
Well, a lot of them, to be fair, they do have kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Partnered laws that tend to, Japan, for instance, they have an age of consent that's quite absurd. It's 13 or something along those lines.
Germany is 14.
Yeah, which is just bonkers. But they tend to have partner laws to them that weirdly make it they make it kind of the Romeo and Juliet thing, as you're saying. They can consent, but only if there's a specific range around that age.
I think it's totally
what's interesting about it is I think the age that you're allowed to marry without parental consent, like in Minnesota, the age of consent is 16, but the age that you can marry without consent is 18. So I think that legal, and I think that might be the case in a lot of states, but that's kind of interesting that you would need parental approval, right? And one could make an argument that you should have parental approval for sex too, under 18, right?
There's a conversation to be had there that's quite lengthy about, at least from my perspective, why I feel that the age of consent needs to be quite high, or at least higher than Yeah, I mean, I think 18 is fairly appropriate.
Yeah.
But you know, you get into some weird stuff there.
But it would be interesting, you know. There's this idea of the young man coming to the father and asking for her hand in marriage. He would have to come to the father and ask to take her to bed. I mean, there would be a whole lot of shooting going on and a whole lot of fleeing and beat downs. It would be interesting, but I don't know.
mean, it's just like the whole, like, for me, like, teenager sex is like old people sex is all gross, but like the point is that like most people have sexual relations way before 18, right?
Oh yeah, well, and there's a huge difference. It needs to be said, in my opinion, there's a huge difference between teenagers being horny teenagers and like a 25-year-old dating a 16-year-old, right?
And that's what Argatha was like, because it just seems unclear to me. But I'm asking you for clarity. Is that what he was suggesting?
His overall point seemed to be that he thinks his thesis statement was essentially like the biblical model of marriage has people getting married at like 14, and he thinks that that's a good thing because they grow together and they don't have time essentially to sleep around, and his words, act like whores.
Well, maybe if they're both 14.
Yeah, but that doesn't imply like the whole like 30-year-old sleeping with 14-year-old. Yeah.
No, certainly not. That was his thesis statement. And with that other guy, CJ was there as well, and it turned into a conversation about consent after that. And Argatha's position was generally like, yeah, well, you know, I don't really see an issue with consent being there. CJ was pushing like the whole idea of what's the big deal between 16 and 21, which, you know, I've been around 16-year-olds and 21-year-olds as an adult, and there's a huge difference between, you know, what kind of maturity that you tend to be at. And Argatha kind of nodded along, and then the whole side chat turned into, like, weirdly enough, kind of a criticism of Argatha and CJ, where everyone was like, this is pretty weird, like, as a conversation. What is it that you're saying exactly? And then you're right, it became pretty unclear in general. I don't remember specifically kind of what he agreed with CJ on, but his whole point was marriage at a young age is good, and with that you can consent to marriage as much as you can consent to sex, I believe.
Well, that part, you know, the whole like 30-year-old, 16-year-old is what kind of bothers me, but like I mean, I don't think we're in this older culture to where like that might, like, if that was encouraged, like I think the encouragement would be misplaced. I don't think it would encourage anyone to do sorts of stuff. But I think in principle, like, I mean, there were cultures that were like that, right? And they were.
Yeah. No, I was going to say I totally agree with you.
Right, in those cultures.
Like Arkansas.
Yeah, it worked out quite well for them too. I mean, lifespans tended to be quite a bit shorter. I mean, it's not like everyone was dying at 30, but they tended to be quite a bit shorter. And if you were, you know, a woman, that was something in a lot of cultures that you kind of wanted to lock up quickly, lest you not be able to find someone to kind of take care of you in a world where you weren't really allowed to take care of yourself. So it worked quite well for a lot of these cultures. And that's not to say, like, I'm not trying to cast shade or cast a negative opinion, I guess, on what they were doing in those specific contexts. I just think we've reached a point with our understanding of development in people that it seems kind of clear that having a low age of consent without kind of those Romeo and Juliet stipulations invites in a lot of potential abuse.
Yeah. And it's obvious that you're not mature enough to actually address these questions until you're 60.
Well,
and most of you don't know that. Most of you don't know that because you're not 60 yet. So you'll figure it out.
I don't know. Especially when you're so young. Oh, hey guys. Yeah. I mean, I was kind of hearing the conversation. I was just gonna say, especially when you're so young, like just a couple of ages, like a couple of years difference can have a pretty big like power dynamic within a relationship, even if it's not like explicit abuse or something.
Well, you know, back in the
18 and 22 are huge.
In the 50s and 60s, if a teenager tried to court your daughter, you got the rifle came out and you got shoot out of the yard.
But if a
22-year-old with a farm or a a job came on, it was entirely different. It was an entirely different situation. You were welcomed.
Have y'all seen the Brian Kemp, Georgia, like political ads?
Guess who's here?
Darth Dawkins, cool.
Yeah,
but there's so Brian Kemp was the state senator, or he was the state governor of Georgia, and he had this one political ad where he was like interrogating his daughter's boyfriend, and he had like a 12 gauge on his lap. So fucking funny.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah, that is good.
Send this in I'll send it in the chat. Yeah.
So another thing that I wanted to point out: anyone aware that among states that have no lower age limit for marriage are California, Maine, Washington, Idaho, Long Island, West Virginia, and New Mexico? Other states allow children to get married at age 14 or 16.
Oh, really? But without consent, parental consent?
No, with parental consent.
Okay.
But there are 13 that have no lower age limit at all.
Yeah, because
as of January 25th, 2020.
My parents made me get a haircut. Otherwise, I got married at 17, and they wouldn't let me get married unless I got a haircut. So that was the last haircut I ever had by a barber.
I can't remember when I had my last haircut. That's been a while.
Yeah, I just chop it off myself now, but I was like, I had long hair until I was like, and I was totally bald when I was 30, and but that was my promise to them. I will get this haircut so that I can marry Carol, but I will never get another haircut again. And I kept that promise. It's cool.
Oh, I have a question.
What is your question, Darth?
Okay, so obviously you're trying to get views or maybe subs by including my name.
Fuck no, we don't care. We don't care. You're just an interesting species.
Well, can I finish without being dogpiled?
Well, I mean, if you're going to say shit about my motivation, then I'm going to come back at you, dude.
I'm just wondering why you wrote Darth Dawkins is incoherent, a liar, and a fraud and a fool. Can you defend any one of those accusations?
I think so. I don't know. It would take me a long time to unpack that, but
okay. Well,
I basically did it just to piss you off. Actually, to tell you.
Oh, I'm not.
I didn't really mean to defend it.
I'm glad that you're so dumb to put something like that because it's not defensible.
You're about to get bounced out of here, dude.
You can bounce me, but the point is, you can dish it out. You can dish it out, but you can't take it.
Speed. I think we should be. We should be a little bit kinder and just have a sing along or something.
Kumbaya, my lord.
Come on.
Kumbaya.
Look.
Kumbaya, my lord. Kumbaya.
Peter, seriously, let's have respect for him. Like, he came in here. Like, let's not.
No, he came in here to pick a fucking fight with me, and that ain't gonna work out. If you want to come in here to support some of the things you were talking about, that'd be cool.
It's a bit difficult to have respect for someone who doesn't show any respect. If Darth would make a small attempt to show some respect, then maybe we could reciprocate.
Okay, so you're slandering and defaming me with that title, or at least in the description. So you explain to me what's your. I'm not going to believe in God anymore. Okay.
Come on,
right? The guy who owns the room here answers in atheism.
What do you want?
Can you defend that I'm incoherent about anything?
No, I didn't mean to defend it. I told you I did it just to piss you off.
Oh, so that statement was a lie then?
Oh, I don't think so. I haven't decided yet. I'm still going over some of your dialogue and stuff, and it seems like you're incoherent. At least you were last night on Praise's channel.
Okay. Could you give specifics? Because people who
I would have to map it out and everything else. I mean, you were talking about
Speed. Weren't we about to see?
Yeah, we were about to listen to some
the video.
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell me briefly? Because I have limited time. I have company coming over in about 40 minutes or less.
You should probably.
Tell me.
You should probably leave so we can talk about you rather than to you. And another time when we have a smaller room, I could talk to you You know, I mean, I'd be open to like a one-on-one at some point.
You're not man enough. You're not man enough to defend your accusation, right?
Well, I don't know if I'm much of a man anymore. At 70, you know, things tend to fall off, and testosterone gets a little low. So yeah, maybe I'm not man enough. I'm kind of a pussy.
So basically, this slanderous remark that you made against me, you're just trolling on YouTube then.
No, actually, you're kind of a piece of shit, Darth. In my opinion, everything I've listened, your bullying, your attitude, your interrogatory attitude is disgusting to me, and you really disgust me. And I think that's probably why I put that together. So, but anyway, I'd love to talk to you about atheism.
While you're I want to add to that. The fact that how we are judging whether or not someone is a man depends on how often they use the mute button and how often they overtalk people when they don't want to be overtalked.
Basically, this is just a troll fest, okay? Because if it's just going to continue as a troll, I have better things.
Wait a
I
second.
just want to see if you're man enough to defend your accusation. If you're not man enough, then I'll leave.
Actually, I identify as a 12-year-old fairy.
Yeah, I find it laughable, Darth, that you say to Speed that he's not man enough because he doesn't want to defend his opinion, whereas you are a coward who will not talk to me.
Darth, what the fuck does what does man have to do with it?
Okay.
Why are you using man?
Okay.
Do you have any women in your life?
Are you done?
Just boys. Just boys.
So Peter,
Really?
I've talked with you on numerous occasions, but
No, you have talked to me on 2 occasions exactly.
As what you're doing right now. No, I've actually talked with you on many occasions.
On 2 occasions.
Every time I do it, and here we go again. Every time I attempt to interact with you, you immediately start over talking and will not let me get my point out. Now, almost
mirror
every
behavior.
Recall,
I'm working on it.
Almost every time that I can recall, Peter, you've been trollish, you've been abusive, and not allow me to get my point of view out. So after somebody does that chronically enough, then there's no point in conversing with them.
Well, here's the thing, Darth. As I just said, I mirror behavior. If you at some point work up the courage to have a decent conversation, I'm open to that.
I'm not.
And if you say that you have talked to me on several occasions, I'll have to correct you because what you have done is talk at me, which is something completely different.
I really don't.
A conversation is a back and forth and not an interrogation like you tend to do.
Peter, have you gotten the memo? Okay. I really don't care what you think of me, and I've pointed out to you and to the YouTube audience
that is entirely mutual.
Here we go.
That is entirely mutual.
See, every time I've come onto this channel, right, and I appreciate the fact that you let me stay for a while, but every time I've come on here, the host, okay, and the participants have dogpiled without exception. Right?
Yep, we have.
I'm not dogpiling.
It's a little bit like on a certain Discord server, isn't it, Darth? Where people get dogpiled and muted and shouted at and ridiculed. I'm subscribed to a channel. Hold on, I wasn't finished. You don't like over talking, so don't over talk. So I'm subscribed to a YouTube channel which is called Supreme Leader Streams or something like that, and literally everything on there is people dogpiling. You've got your little minions who will even jump in to defend you while you are talking to someone. So don't come here and complain when you spend your entire life with your minions on that Discord server dogpiling on people.
It is absolutely.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
sure.
Hold on a second. Yeah, I'll just say one last time, Peter. It is absolutely fruitless and pointless dialoguing with you because you just troll. Do you recall our last interaction?
Glories of the
about
genius
16.
and eruditeness
Here we
of
go.
Peter Drucker right now. I mean, I'm hanging on every word of his brilliance.
Peter.
See,
okay.
God damn it, you guys like chased him out.
Yeah. So Top Dog wanted to say something.
Remember 2 weeks ago, he was supposed to be respectable when I was on Praise's channel.
Yeah.
And then I answered his questions, and then he yelled at me and said to kick me out and stuff.
Yep. Yeah,
I was being respectful.
Yeah, I understand, but like you can't you just can't bum rush him like that. Like give him an opportunity to say what he's going to say. I understand he doesn't do that. I understand that his position, that he calls people liars, that he mutes them, he overtalks them, but we want to kind of like have go on with that, you know.
I did mute Peter when he was playing his soundboard.
Yeah. Don't play the soundboard when Darth is here.
Yeah,
just
I did mute Peter, but I did it too late. Darth had already left.
Yeah,
and, you know. Hey,
it's just. I'm open to having a conversation with him, but it's impossible.
Is that Jack?
Yeah, that's Jack.
Oh, sweet.
So, yeah,
you're just like 2 minutes late, Jack.
Yeah, you missed Darth.
Oh man.
Yeah, and that's my fault. So I apologize for that.
I mean, look. The funny thing is that in your note on YouTube, you say Darth Dawkins is incoherent, a liar, a fraud, and a fool. Okay, so you could go down that list and say, is Darth incoherent? Well, he constantly makes arguments that atheist positions are incoherent because we can't explain what is ultimate that describes all facts and reality, but he himself can only say the divine and special revelation are that what provides him with that ultimate foundation. You could say that's incoherent. He calls people liars all the time.
Okay, do you know where I got that from, Jason?
Where?
The reason I wrote that in the description is because I was just listening to him blanket calling all atheists incoherent liars and frauds. So I put it in the description just to piss him off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that worked.
And it worked. He came on.
You could make an argument that he, in some capacity, fits all of those in some regard. So,
So
anyway,
Jack, by the way, has never been here before, and do you have anything you want to yell at us about, Jack, or anything? You're muted, in case you're talking. But I wanted to give you a chance to talk about Darth or whatever. Nope, not getting nothing.
Jack is not very familiar with StreamYard, or at least if he is, he doesn't.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. He's
no, I think the problem.
Hey, Jack. Yeah, you're good.
Go for it, Jack.
Yeah.
Jack, you're muted.
You're roboting.
Oh, that's a problem. Okay.
Just give it a second. Maybe it'll clear up.
Yep. Got to get into an area with some reception. Anyway, that was fun. He was apparently offended by my description, but I literally got that out of his words about atheists in general, and I thought, it's turnabout is fair play, I think.
I mean, what I would say is that the next time Darth pops in here, like,
we're gonna have to boot Peter, one or the other, because Peter pisses him off.
I'm more than happy. I'm more than happy to mute myself.
Yeah,
just.
Because frankly, I think that the question should be that Darth constantly runs his script around this incoherency around atheism, but he seldom wants to talk about his own worldview and why that worldview is coherent. And if we're comparing worldviews, then ultimately one worldview is more coherent than the other. How can we evaluate that? I mean, I think that ultimately when he gets to these issues of like his position can answer this ultimacy for where facts come from, that he can't really provide any evidence that would suggest that's the case. And then we just get down to this thing of like, well, what's more probable, that one worldview is more coherent or the other? He never wants to talk about that.
the thing is,
his entire thing is based on assumptions, and he will never back those assumptions up with
the thing is, if you're putting out a metaphysical, if you're defining or designing a metaphysical worldview, like Brain in a Vat, for instance, or Last Thursdayism, you could put together a perfectly coherent metaphysical worldview. Unfortunately, there are an infinite number of them that you can put together. And so coherence doesn't really count for much.
Yeah, I mean,
I want to say something real quick. Next time we have a situation where, like, a couple of people are trying to get in and we're filled up, I'm probably going to kick out one or two regulars.
Yeah.
If you do that to me, that's fine. If I'll understand what's going on.
Yeah, I was thinking,
when it comes
hasn't spoken in a while, but so if we ever do that, don't be upset. It's just that Jefferson and I think Jay were trying to get in to also.
When it comes to this subject, Danny, I'd prefer to have you around. So anyway,
you can boot me because I have no connection to Darth.
Okay.
I would never boot.
Nobody would ever boot Gutsick Gibbon from a fucking stream. That's suicide. That's crazy talk, Erica.
You guys give me way too much credit. I'm only using the stream because I won't stop talking.
Your videos, the videos you put together are so damn good that you make all of us want to quit our channels.
Jack just said that why did he leave? And I said they kept on trolling him and over talking him, and it was amusing. And then Jack said, "Oh, good," and then left.
Okay. Anyway, I've listened to Jack and watched some of his stuff, and I was kind of happy when he came in. I was hoping he would have said something, but apparently his connection wasn't good.
He was on his phone.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, Darth would flee if Jack came in and Darth was there. Darth would be gone.
Darth would leave.
He would leave.
Jack started talking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, Peter has the ultimate Darth eraser tool with that soundboard. I mean, if we want to get rid of him, we'll call you Peter. Just hammer him. Anyway. Yeah. I guess he was offended by my description. Damn, I'm sorry, Darth. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't mean that.
No, so here's the thing. Here's the thing, Speed. He has searches that he has bookmarked. Atheist shows live, and then shows that have his name in them. So if you have his name in the title, he'll probably show up because he'll do a search every hour or half an hour or whatever to see who's live and who's talking about him.
He's kind of full of himself, I would do it to get
that
subs.
tells you all about him. You need to know that he's looking for his own name on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate truth is that I do get more views when it's Darth related, and I think that is just disgusting. That we are that kind of a race. That this is what draws us in.
People like train wrecks and dumpster fires, and that's why when you put his name in the title, you'll get more people. Oh, now we lost Jefferson.
We lost Danny.
Jefferson and his brother Jay are trolls. I've dealt with them before.
That's the introduction. Hey, Jefferson.
So they were going off on you last night, Jefferson and Jay.
I went in there for a little bit.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't get that far, so.
Yeah, I wasn't there for long. I had a little to drink and decided I'd just kind of sneak in. Praise let me in. I just kept my mic muted and everything. They were talking in there. And then Praise starts up. You want to talk to Darth? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I'm just here.
Well, guys, it's almost 4:00 and we haven't got through much of this video, so I don't know what to do. I think we could probably defer it for another day and, get a few more subs out of Darth. Maybe do it tomorrow or Monday. I don't know. But I would like to
get about the MathPig Mama Marathon, Mama's Moving Marathon on MathPig.
I did mention that, and it is in the description. And MathPig's link is there, but I thought some other channels were going to have a sort of I thought it was going to be a multi-channel thing.
I don't think
I don't have any.
I think it's like from one channel to another, and they each cover an hour or a time period. But I'm not sure.
I think that's at what, 5 p.m. Central Time? Is that
4
true?
p.m. Central Time. It's about to start.
It's now. Okay, yeah, we should get the hell off.
Yeah,
but I would like to.
But by the way, Steve, one thing, you picked the entire wrong day, because today you should have been reviewing something from Gavin Hurleman, because apparently it's No Pants Day today. So.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, damn it. You have clips from that. Anyway, so here's what I'm going to do.
Do you want me to show those?
Oh, no.
No,
well,
I thought so.
Well,
maybe Monday.
Let's find out from Jefferson if he's wearing pants. Sir, are you wearing pants?
Jefferson?
Yeah, I'm actually wearing 3 pairs. I've kind of overcorrected, given the horror that Gavin has been.
Oh no! Did he do it again last night?
No, I don't know the last time he was on camera where he was like wandering around. I'm still trying to figure out what he's sitting in. I'm trying to because everybody's like, he's not wearing pants. It's like, no, watch him sit down in the chair. It's like he's putting his feet in something, and then he does this. It's weird. I'm just.
Well, he was sitting on a teddy bear at one point.
For Randolph's debate, he was sitting on a pillow that people have pointed out to me is a standard pillow for people with hemorrhoids.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not entirely sure why, but he did have problem sitting down. If you watch that debate, he sits down very carefully and then starts rearranging the pillows that he's sitting on.
He has hemorrhoids.
It's weird.
But yeah, if he's gotten that bad, he's probably like pretty close to getting. Maybe he's waiting for surgery or something, because those can get messy. Yeah.
Okay, so what my plan is to go through a little bit more of this Darth stuff, and maybe get it together and have Danny in, have Jefferson and Jay in, and go over some of this stuff, because I think some of the questions Argatha was asking him revealed some interesting aspects, but I don't know. I'm new to the whole Darth thing, so I'm not a Darth specialist at this point.
I think the only way to make Darth look stupid is ask him questions about the Bible. He doesn't know a lot about the Bible.
Yeah. But I have a paper to do tonight, and I like the weather report to end at 4. So does anybody object to my plan to end the stream?
Go on to Answers in Atheism.
Jefferson, I know you just got here, and Midnight, you just got here. I know. Were you trying to get in before, Jefferson?
No, I was working. So.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I was just on the chat.
Anyway, so either on Monday we'll get back to this topic, or I think maybe on Monday. I that gives me 2 days to word something special for Darth in my description.
Make sure any adjective you use you can defend with like a 50-page paper.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I will definitely work on that all weekend. So.
Well, you could take a few quotes from Darth. There is
God doesn't exist,
and there is.
I'm not going to believe in God anymore.
No,
there is no God.
You have to ask him how old he is. You have to focus that he's incoherent.
How old are you?
You have to say what he's saying is mumbo jumbo and gobbledygook.
Well,
there's all
why
kinds
are you
of things
acting like a snot-nosed 16-year-old?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, that's one thing that Darth has not asked me yet is how old are you?
Yeah,
it's like he fucking knows I got that on him anyway.
Well, you volunteered the information for one thing.
If you really want to,
you can discuss it.
No.
Well, he could be like, how old are you? When you say how old you are, he's like, I can't understand how somebody of age X can act like a teenager.
Yeah.
That's his response to somebody who's older.
It doesn't matter. He'll do this like, how old are you? I'm 15. Well, you sure do act like it.
Yeah,
how
exactly.
old are you? I'm 45. Well, you act like you're 15.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There was no way I was going to get a pat on the head for answering
That's right.
the question, honestly. That's why anytime, if any of these guys ask me how old I am, I say I'm 7 years older than Moses. That way, because it forces them to do weird math. So.
Speed, I know why he doesn't ask you. Because there's one other. There's one other line that he likes to use, and he can't use that with you, and that
I'm
is
probably 2 or 3 times your age. Do you?
I know.
Yeah.
4 or 5 times.
Yep. I am older than Moses. Okay, guys.
Yeah. But here's an interesting topic. Try to talk to Darth how to correctly speak in tongues.
Flying spaghetti monster Akbar.
Wow.
Wow.
You got some. What the fuck?
One of these days, Peter, I'm gonna need that soundboard.
Okay. Anybody? Okay, we should get off. Anybody have any final words? Final and brief final words.
Darth is a dick.
Okay. Yeah, douchebag.
Listen, you're a buffoon.
You didn't look at my video.
What?
You didn't look at the video.
No, we haven't yet. Which video?
The one I linked in the side chat before I left.
Yeah. Oh, that was like years and years ago. In YouTube moments.
Yep.
Damn. Okay, we'll get to it.
You just have to
You know,
be
you know
really
what the you know what the problem with you is?
What?
This young skull full of mush thinks he's so smart. He thinks he was. I mean, he was a train wreck.
I mean, I don't think I'm smart. I think I'm the dumbest person in here, aside from, well, never mind. And I'm not gonna pick on him.
Right now, you have spiritual rabies.
Okay, Peter, you've already had your last word. We're trying to end the fucking stream. Okay, now shut the fuck up. Okay. I'm ending the broadcast now, guys. So goodbye, cruel world.
Bye-bye.
Stay curious.
Okay, anybody can hang around backstage for a minute. So, okay, bye.